The book is called Speaking for Myself, Faith, Freedom, and the Fight of Our Lives Inside the Trump White House. It is written by my guest, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Sarah, you were just talking to us about the Red Hen story, and you said here's the part of the story that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, so we had to save that for suspense for after the break. But my family, my husband and I, we had been asked to leave the restaurant, and we went home. And the rest of our family went across the street to another restaurant where the owner of the Red Hen proceeded to follow them to that restaurant, gather a group of her friends, and protest them at another restaurant where I wasn't even in attendance anymore, until finally one of the family members walked outside and said, look, Sarah's not even here. You're not helping anybody. It's time for you to go home. And eventually she did. But, I think that it shows just how intense the liberal mob has become when they essentially want Democrat restaurants and Republican restaurants, and those that don't agree with them, they don't want them eating in their establishments. And that was definitely a difficult day, but one we got through and came out on the other side of.
Sarah, what is your reaction to the new Woodward book, and why did President Trump give him so much access?
I think the president wanted to talk to him because his first book was so negative, and the president felt if he injected his voice, maybe it would be better. I know past presidents have done the same thing, including President Bush, hoping that they could make a Woodward book a little more positive, and I don't think it works out usually very well for any of them. But I think that was the reason for him talking about, look, I don't have to read Bob Woodward's book. I haven't seen it yet. I've obviously seen some of the news coverage, but I spent 2.5 years in the Trump White House. I know who the president is. I know that he's working hard for every American every day. And I think that my book and my account of this president is a much more authoritative and reflective account of what really takes place inside that building on a day-to-day basis.
Sarah, my impression over the years is that your dad was not a big Trump fan at first, but Trump has grown on him. Am I wrong about that?
They actually got along very well. Oddly enough, they have certainly quite a few differences. But in 2012, when a lot of people were speculating that my dad would run for president again, it was Donald Trump who came on his show after my dad announced that he wouldn't, and made a video for him. I think they had gotten to know each other when my dad was doing his show on Fox News from New York, and had run into each other a time or two there and developed a bit of a friendship. And so obviously they were opponents in the early parts of 2016, and so he wasn't supporting Trump then. He was running his own race. But after he got out, he moved to support the president behind the scenes.
Sarah, did Sean Spicer and/or Ari Fleischer give you any advice before you took the job? And did you give any advice to Kayleigh McEnany when she took her job?
I did. One of the things that I think everybody learns is you have to kind of make the role your own, but certainly there are some things that each of us have experienced and learned from that we could pass on. One of the things that I told Kayleigh and pushed for her was to always be yourself. And I think that goes whether you're a press secretary or any other position, but don't try to be anyone other than who God created you to be. He made you special and unique for a reason, and he put you in that role for a reason. So don't try to be anybody other than that. And Kayleigh's somebody who has a deep faith, and we share that, have that common bond. And so I think that was something she knew already, but it was something that was important to me to remind myself of every single day. And so it was one of the things that I mentioned to her the day before her first briefing. Sean Spicer is a very good friend, and I got to work under him, so I learned from him as he was learning the job himself. I always say I had the advantage in the Trump White House of going second. So I got to learn some of the do's and don'ts in real time with Sean, and he was somebody I could call on at any point during my time as the press secretary. Ari Fleischer is, I think he paved the way for a lot of communicators out there, and he's one of the best in the business, still is one of the, I think, top communicators in the country, and was always encouraging and helpful on some of the toughest days. Ari is one of the first people to reach out and offer encouragement and support. One thing that people probably don't know is that Josh Ernst also, who was a press secretary for President Obama, he and I had an off-the-record, out-of-the-way visit, and he couldn't have been nicer, and I still am very grateful and appreciative to him for that conversation in the very early days of taking on that role.
Well, the book is called Speaking for Myself, Faith, Freedom, and the Fight of Our Lives Inside the Trump White House. It is written by my guest, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Sarah, thank you for taking so much time with us. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. Always great to be with you, Larry.
Oh, Sarah, one more thing before you leave. I don't know if you heard the caller mention my documentary. It's called Uncle Tom. It is really, really a good documentary. I know it's self-serving, Sarah. I want to send you a screener, and just maybe if you have time, you can look at it.
Absolutely. I'd love to take a look.
It is en route. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Larry.
You got it.